Right, good morning everyone. I think we're just about ready to get underway, and I hope you all had a nice coffee break and come back nice and refreshed, ready for this first panel session of the day, which is around collaborating to deliver social value. So that's what we're going to be talking about for the next half an hour or so. And we are joined by Rachel Atkin, who's the Head of Social Value for Colas, Tracy Gregg, Employment and Skills Senior Manager at Leeds City Council, Amanda Richards, Assistant Director Highways Network and Asset Management for Surrey County Council, and Sean Rooney, who's Head of Service for Highway Maintenance, Environment and Place at Oxfordshire County Council. So just to set the scene first of all, before we crack on with the discussion, so 11 years after the introduction of the Social Value Act in the UK, the local council Roads Innovation Group has launched an initiative to look at how far the highway sector has come in embedding social value and where the challenges still lie. So professionals from the highway sector have spoken about the importance of embedding social value on both the contractor and client side during an invitation-only virtual roundtable discussion which we held on the subject, and the conversation then continued during a public webinar last month. So hopefully some of you in the room were able to attend that session. So as I say, we're delivering this in association with Colas and looking at how the sector has responded so far and how collaborative social value delivery can respond to the future challenges faced. So we're going to get a little bit of audience participation going first of all to see if you are all truly woken up after your coffee break. So just like to do, we're not going to go down the Slido route, we're going to go old school with a raise of hands. And I'm just going to ask, in terms of who in the room, do you think that you truly understand what social value is? If you do, then raise your hand. If you think you truly understand what social value is, can you raise your hand? Okay, mixed bag, yeah. And then, do you think that your company or organisation is doing enough to embed social value? If you do, raise your hand. Doing enough to embed social value. Okay, so there you go, Rachel. You saw that for yourself. I mean, what do you make of the room's, first of all, the reaction to those two questions? Are you surprised?
No, not really. We see an awful lot of disparity in the sector, from client to contractor to client to contractor. Again, it's a massive area for improvement, I think, is the lack of consistency and the disparity. And that was one of the things that really interested me through the roundtable and the webinar, was the different approaches and the different levels that people are at with embedding social value effectively through procurement and through contracting.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, there was a lot of interesting discussions during, as you say, that virtual roundtable that we had and the public webinar last month. I mean, can you tell the audience a little bit more about why you wanted to support this series? You know, why Colas supported it?
I think it's that kind of embedding piece that 11 years on from the Social Value Act being introduced, there's still an issue around how social value is embedded in contracting, how the procurement methodology drives either effective or ineffective collaboration, and how the embedding the requirements into contracts is so varied. The frustration that I have within that sort of contracting piece is that it always seems to be the thing that falls off the agenda when things get busy. And then it deprioritises it, and we're all here to make life better for communities, and it's this added value that gets missed if it falls off the agenda. So the reason that I wanted to support it is to see if as a sector we can start to address this disparity and the social value last sort of approach that isn't always there, but
yeah, exactly. It's about making sure that, as you say, it doesn't fall off the agenda as well, isn't it? And can you tell us a little bit more about what Colas's social value strategy is?
Our strategy is very heavily focused on deprived communities and disadvantaged groups. So we do a lot of research and understanding to get to the heart of what our clients are looking to achieve. We're about to relaunch the next incarnation of our social value strategy. We kind of did a ground zero one, and now we're moving on, which focuses on the real why of embedding an Act of Parliament isn't an easy thing to do. So why did public sector do that? What are they actually looking for? And our belief is that it's looking for this collaboration piece that as private and public sector we can work as one to address the issues that are still challenging us within communities.
Yeah, because that is the key, as we'll touch upon more as we go on in the conversation. It is about trying to bring both the private and public sector together, isn't it? And one interesting point that I thought that Frank Lee made during his presentation from the ICW earlier, he was talking about, one size does not fit all when it comes to social value. What's your sort of observations of that? Is that something you'd agree?
Yeah, absolutely. I was doing a little clap when Frank said that this morning. It absolutely doesn't fit all. Every community is different. Every contractor is different as well. That some contractors have the capability to do some things and others don't. And so the procurement methodology needs to take account of that, and so does the relationship between client and contractor.
Yeah, and an example of that is obviously you've been doing some work, as I understand it, with Leeds City Council and Tracy to your right, who I'm sure will come in a moment. But do you want to just tell us a little bit more about the relationship that you've developed with Tracy and Leeds and how that's working?
It's incredibly well. It's a very strong relationship. I'll let Tracy talk in a second, although I might not be able to stop her once she does. And the work that we've done through having that collaboration with the client is the best in the business. It's incredible that we've developed a bespoke reintegration to employment scheme that we've so far brought 8 people through the scheme, which is a series of interventions. 6 of those are now employed, and 1 is still on work placement, and that's just in Leeds, and we've learned lessons from that scheme and then rolled it out across the business. But it was born of collaboration with Tracy and some charities in the area that she'd introduced us to, and I'll let Tracy tell you a bit more.
Yes, it's about relationships, and I think that's why we work so well with COLAS. It's not around outputs and targets and tick boxes, it's around relationships and knowing the city. The social value's been around a long time. Leeds Town Hall was built with migrants in Victorian times who were given meaningful work. Social value, whatever language we use, has been around an awful long time. And I think we get hung up on CSR, social value, ESG, whatever it is. It's about relationships, really.
Yeah, and it's that word collaboration again, isn't it, Tracy, that we've already heard a lot about this morning. But truly it sounds as though, you have got that collaboration really working well with COLAS.
And it's just being able to pick up the phone, there might be some targets, or we might... I work in the Employment Skills Service, and I have an interesting relationship with our commissioning team, who are very keen to include targets. I think once you have those transactions, I think you lose that relationship collaboration. And I think if you have a relationship with your contractor, which we do with COLAS, you can achieve far much more of lasting impact than ticking target boxes.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, thanks for now, Tracy. Let's just hear from a little bit from Amanda and Sean then. We want to talk a little bit about demystifying social value, and how do we get everybody on the same page when it comes to social value, Amanda, do you think? How big a challenge is that, and how can we achieve it?
So for me, I guess my first experience of social value, and I probably didn't even call it social value at the time. In our previous contract, we did a lot of work with vulnerable young people, and Keir, some of the people here today, were set up a programme that we called S-Skills. We won an award here actually at Social Value in 2019 for it. But I think what that told me was that it's not something that just happens, and it's something that you have to work at. So we've retendered a lot of our contracts in the last year, and we had a big focus on social value. And so in our term maintenance contracts now, we have a specific person whose role is community and place manager, because I think it's very difficult for all of us who have a day job to do that justice alongside everything else that we do as well. So I think that's, but also, the other thing that we've done is we've got them to have an informal alliance with each other, so all of our key contractors, because I think probably something we'll come on to, but you can't expect your grass cutting contractor who's got a level of income from you to do the same level of social value as your term maintenance contractor who's got much more. But if they can work together and agree the kind of things they want to work on and we want them to work on, then we can achieve a lot more together.
That's great. Thanks, Amanda. And Sean, I mean, what about from your perspective, in trying to get everybody on the same page? And I suppose it's that kind of cross-department challenge as well, isn't it? Kind of, there's often a lot of focus put on, well, if someone, it's the job of the person that's got social value in their job title, but actually it's much wider than that, isn't it? Everybody's got a responsibility.
Yeah, and you know, from my perspective, going back to the how do we demystify it, the fact is that, you know, there's a show of hands around the room, and there's not a single understanding of what is social value. You know, we're all working, well, the majority of people in this room work in the public sector. There's an element of social value there to start with because we choose to work in that sector. You know, we're not being paid millions of pounds as economists and things like that. We want to provide that service. I think it's how we get it into that business as usual. How do we get, you know, we're all talking the same definition of what is social value. This to me is embedding it in everybody's role, profile, build it into people's, you know, opportunities to learn as much as anything, because we can't enhance the knowledge of what it is until we tell people what we're trying to achieve. You know, and it's that skills base, and I know through TAG, Amanda and I are heavily involved in, you know, the skills people, it isn't just around about can they design a junction, can they design a signal, can they deliver everything that we need to do as a public sector organisation to actually bring in that social value. So the demystification for me is around about, let's get the full understanding that is needed. You know, it's really sad to talk about the fact that this has been here for 10 years plus. We as an organisation introduced our latest social value policy last year. You know, and that's, we need to do something about that. We need to bring it more into the open. And one point before I promise to shut up, the fact is that it's very much at the moment procurement-led. We talk about building it into contract. How do we build it into the everyday aspect of what my guys do, your guys do, across the board?
Thanks, Sean. Yeah, and Rachel, I mean, Sean talks about, you know, that understanding of social value, and again, you know, how do we sort of move it on? How do we take it to the next level, I guess? You know, would you agree with that, what Sean's starting to touch upon there in terms of the procurement methodologies? Do they need to be simplified, for example?
Yeah, we have. There's toolkits and portals and engines and calculators and targets and things. And I think it's great, but once you start monetising something, you actually lose a local impact. So it's great to say we've got £2 million worth of social value because you've used a calculator. What did that mean to somebody from one of our deprived communities? You know, we've created 10 apprenticeships. Fantastic, at £5.28 an hour. All of our career, you know, our care leavers might not be able to access those. What do you do around working and supporting our neat young people? What do you do around, you know, so it's not just around that monetisation, I think, loses that local impact. And that's why I think relationships are so important. Because once you understand local needs, then you can make a lasting impact.
And Rachel, you want to come in? Yeah.
I agree. I think a lot of procurement methodologies have become quite overcomplicated, as well as some of the monitoring and evaluation methodologies, and it takes something away when it becomes a science. And we can all see the kind of cottage industry that's developed around measuring impacts and coming up with complex procurement methodologies. I think some of the old ways are the best of just that kind of simplicity in the procurement exercise, and a pledge to work together with the client is what you need. It's the relationship between the two of you, and the relationship with the right place as well. That sometimes it's like never the twain shall meet between council departments, and so the people that we need to work with as social value professionals are people like Tracy within the employment and skills team, or like Rebecca in the leaving care team, and those organisations where it's about the development of communities and societies are the ones that we need to work towards. So within the procurement exercise, you know, understanding the resources within the local the local authority, and a pledge to work together and be partners in creating specialised programmes or whatever else is needed for that particular community.
Right, and Amanda, what's your experience been like at Surrey, you know, in terms of that sort of relationships, you know, and being key to sort of the client contractor side, etc., you know, in ensuring this gets taken forward in the right way?
Yeah, I think it's, like others have said, it's all about relationships and building those relationships. And for a local authority, you know, as the highway service, we can't do everything to do with social value. So it's understanding what social value is needed by the communities that other areas of the council know about, the people who work in adult social care and in children's services, and bringing all that together. But equally, I think, we all have, not enough resources, not enough funding. So making the social value work for us as a service as well is also important. So, for instance, we all know that there's a skills shortage, so having a social value focus on schools and employing diverse and inclusively, that's going to help us as an industry. So it doesn't have to just be what does that community need, but if we can build the right highway service with the right resources, that is providing social value to the community as well.
Thanks, Amanda. And Sean, moving on a little bit now to talk about sort of decision making around social value. So how can we ensure that social value requirements are proportionate to a contract value, say, and that value, the type and duration that involves communities in our decision making around social value?
I think it was Amanda that raised the point that it has to be scalable. We can't ask a small local SME, which again, delivering social value by employing people such as that is essential, because it's around about supporting our local economy, environment and society to flourish. So how do we scale it? Let's be flexible in terms of, we're often too prescriptive sometimes, that thou shalt have Tom's number 1 to 24. Now, they may not even understand what a Tom is. Put it into plain English. This is the outcome that we're trying to achieve. How can you do that? And if it doesn't necessarily match the fact that, that ticks the box for Tom number 27, so what? You're actually getting what you need on the ground. So it's taking that flexible approach. And I think it goes back to what I said earlier. We need to bring it back into the service that is able to deliver that. And the relationships around about the monetization versus the actual delivery on the ground. What are we trying to achieve? Are we trying to achieve the betterment of the supply chain's next tender assessment, or are we looking to deliver something that is on the ground, making a better community and allowing it to flourish in a better fashion? So it is around about flexibility. Let's not be too prescriptive. If they've got an idea, as you said, we've all been doing social value for quite some time in a different stance or in a different guise. It means different things to different people, but the important thing is the benefit and the flourishing of the community and the environment and economy.
Yeah, it exactly goes back to Frank's earlier point of one size does not fit all. But Rachel, coming back to you for a moment as well. I mean, what's the potential impact of social value requirements that are not proportionate? What's the potential impact? I mean, I suppose it's unintended consequences, isn't it, sometimes?
It is, and this is something that myself and Tracy have discussed at length with the reintegration to employment scheme, is the potential impact, using that as an example. When we're looking to employ people that are heavily disadvantaged and trauma experienced, we know that there's a long period of time that it takes to get our own workforce ready to manage them, and then to engage that person, to bring them through slowly at their pace. That in itself can take 6 to 9 months. And then we don't want to bring them into an opportunity that's less than a year long, because then it's disruptive to the benefits, and that's the part where it could make things worse rather than better, because you take a person off benefits, it then takes ages to get the finances straight, and then if they have to go back on benefits, it takes them ages to go back on again. So it's financially very disruptive and creates those pitfalls that can lead to them going to loan sharks or payday lenders and things that actually cause more financial stress than less. So it's the proportionality again that Sean's talking about, that understanding the potential deliverables of that particular contract and that particular contractor.
Yeah, thank you. And Tracy, one of the things that we discovered, as we've gone through this series, is that there's a number of different ways of trying to measure social value, and a number of different tools that, different councils are using, and there's perhaps some confusion over what's best or, what's not working, etc. But what you've already touched upon it, actually, sometimes it's important to, not just put a monetary value on social value, it's the impact, isn't it, on communities and giving people opportunities. I mean, can you give an example, within your authority of where that's happened and, where someone's benefited from this?
Yeah, it is around that. We have in Tom's, I think it's somebody getting into a job within 50-mile radius. Well, that's not going to help anybody in Leeds, or it might not do. So it's around, I think, around doing fewer things, but doing them really well, so they can make an impact. And this, you know, going on about me, wish there was one ring to rule all or something, because there are so many different ways of measuring it. And I just think it's around understanding what they need. So, you know, local authorities have inclusive growth strategy, so have a look at what that inclusive growth strategy, what the priorities are, how you can do 2 or 3 things really well. We had a big development in Leeds, a big shopping centre, and we worked with the developer 18 months before it opened. We did some community information sessions. We provided information around the opportunities coming up, and we supported people through that, rather than we've let a contract on a Friday, we might need 6 people next week. It's that lead-in time as well. And as I say, doing a few things, but doing them really well.
Exactly, no, good to hear. And Amanda, we've already heard about collaboration, and it's one of Elcrig's pillars, of course. But how do we, you know, build effective collaboration around social value? What are the key ingredients in relationships that allow for that collaboration, do you think?
I think it's understanding what it is that you want to deliver in partnership, and it is, for us, partnership is a very key word in all of our contractual relationships. And I think we can't expect all the contractors to know what it is we want to deliver, particularly, you know, we talk about SMEs and things, and we can't expect them to have, you know, big tender writing teams, and if they don't, you know, tick the box on social value because maybe they've never even heard of it, then we don't work with them. Because at the end of the day, the operational delivery of our service is the kind of thing we want to do first. The social value is what comes after. So it needs to be proportionate. So we need to have those collaborative conversations with the supply chains and make sure they're on the same page, make sure they understand what it is we want to achieve, what social value is, you know, our personal definition of it, and how we want to achieve that. So to give them the best opportunity to shine when they're tendering, and that social value bit is included.
Thanks. And Sean, are those collaborative sort of conversations happening, you know, within Oxfordshire, would you say?
I think they're starting to, you know, the collaboration between, you know, different organisations, but it's that internal collaboration that's needed as well, in as much as, you know, how do we talk to education, how do we talk to, you know, a corporate parent responsibility. And I think it's, you know, a great thing for me is around about communication. Everybody in this room would not disagree. To do anything effectively, you have to communicate effectively. And I think it's that knowledge base. You know, we talk about collaboration, but internally, do we have service champions? Going back to my point earlier, a lot of the, you know, the lead for social value is in the procurement team. Why? Why is it not? Why don't I have a service champion for highways? Why don't that service champion work with education, with social care, adult care, and things such as that? So I think the conversations are taking place, but individually and not collaboratively. And again, it goes back to my earlier point about making it business as usual, making everybody within the organisation aware of what it actually means, and having the same definition of what we're trying to achieve and what does it mean. There's a long way to go.
Yeah, thanks, Sean. And Rachel, do you find that, you know, when you're engaging with councils, you know, you're having to talk to different departments, you know, how do you know, what's involved in the process? How challenging can that be, you know, when you're trying to implement the social value and get them to understand it?
Again, a lot of disparity. It's very different from council to council, that some are very engaged and really understand that we as a contractor, you know, we're not the expert in all things, that we need guidance and we need good partners to work with. And other authorities, it can be incredibly difficult to get to the right person. We do persevere, but it can be quite challenging. Finding good quality services to work with across the board is a big challenge, and it's key to our success that, as said, we're not the experts in how to do pre-employment support with a homeless person, but there are great charities that are. And it's knowing our place within that relationship, and the guidance that we get from local authorities when we get into the right department is absolutely crucial.
Well, let's see if we've got any questions from the audience. Anyone got a question for our panel? Here's an opportunity if you want to raise your hand. Yeah, look, Martin's always to the rescue. Thank you, Martin. Hopefully we can get a mic to Martin and then we'll start to wrap it up. We've got about 5 minutes left.
Thanks very much. Is that working? Yeah. I sit here and, you know, in this society that we're in right now, and at some stage today we think that Rishi's going to make the formal announcement that the link on HS2 is going to be sacked, and you know, we'll go for those short-termism measures in order to appease us as the public. I sit here and think, do you know what, is social value going to come under some of these pressures? I know that, you know, we can claim, no, social value shouldn't necessarily cost us more money. In some instances it does. You know, so do you think we're going to face those pressures? Because social value is really that long-term view, isn't it? It's about taking someone out of long-term unemployment at the age of 16 and having them gainfully employed for the next 40 years, contributing to society with tax and all of those good things. But do you think that the short-term, almost culture that is wrapped around us right now will put pressures on social value?
I think so, yeah. The short-term culture is difficult because, as you've rightly said, a lot of the outcomes that we're looking for are really long-term outcomes. You need to be able to be with someone for a long time to achieve them. So yeah, I believe it is a problem.
I don't think it has to be. That's what I'm saying. We can do a few things and do them less. It shouldn't cost. You know, we do a lot of work in our schools, so we do work in all of our secondary schools, FA and sixth form colleges around careers guidance. They're always desperate for some world of work experience. If you can't provide new jobs or apprenticeships, give an hour up and meet your future workforce, inspire somebody. So those are the things that can be done without cost. And so some people might think, oh, I didn't know I could do that, or I didn't know that was available, or I've been inspired by that. So some things shouldn't cost.
We need to look at that long-term view, because what we're doing now is going to provide benefits for the future. It's going to, you know, the apprentices and the recruitment is going to get the staff that we need for the future. So yes, it might be a bit more hard work now, but we need to do it to, you know, for what we're going to deliver from it.
I think especially, you know, hopefully some of my local authority colleagues will recognise that this time of year it's always a difficult time, because we're challenged on finding that extra 5% here, that 10% there. It's not just about the capital, you know, it is about the revenue aspect of it. And, you know, many of us, as Mr. Taylor, but, you know, it is into the marrow. We're not into the bones anymore about what we can deliver. So I think the short-termism is potentially there. Politically, we've got to make some really difficult decisions. You know, again, we're in a sector of public service. What is it we're trying to achieve? You know, it is a consideration, and like you said, it shouldn't cost money, but it does. Why? Let's potentially look at it from a different angle. You know, as you said, we've already been doing it for quite some years. Rebadge it with a bit of a nudge. Don't call it social value, call it something else that you're already doing, and you get the benefit to the communities through a different means. But even longer term, if you think about the benefits, some of the people that we're targeting positively, whether they be care leavers, ex-offenders, the joy that they can get and the inspiration and growth in their life from a mental health perspective, because, you know, mental health is key in everything that we do. And the fact that because they found employment, because they found a value or a worth to the community, long term, and this might seem like a tenuous link, but it's going to reduce the impact on NHS in the future, because mental care issues, health issues, they're out and about, they're living in the community, looking out for each other, health and welfare. So I think, unfortunately, Martin, short-termism will probably come into it, but we as a sector need to look at it slightly differently and balance, because, you know, we are the greatest plate spinners in the country when it starts to come to what services can we and should we provide. But we can't let, you know, let's let the IKEA plates fall off, but some of the Royal Daltons we need to keep on the stick spinning round.
Yeah, thanks, Sean. Some great points well made there. Let's just stay with you for a moment just to get some final thoughts very briefly, if you don't mind, because we're rapidly running out of time, so literally 10 seconds. When considering everything that we've spoken about during this session, what one key action do you think would make a difference to social value delivery in your area?
Introduction of social value champions across the directorates.
Brilliant. That's exactly the length of answer that we need. Amanda?
I think beyond across the directorate, I think across the council, so you know who in the different departments is the person to talk to about different things. Sorry, not as snappy as Sean.
Nearly. Tracy?
I think we need to simplify the process and confirm the language that we're using.
Great. And the final word to you, Rachel?
I think we need to specialise more of just, as Tracy says, do a few things well and stop including long lists of outcomes in tenders.
Great. Well, look, thank you very much. I think it's been a fascinating insight into, how we can collaborate around social value. It is a very important function that we should all be taking seriously, and everybody can play a part, and the impact that it can have as well on, wider communities that we all serve as well, of course, should be of the utmost importance, because, we do make a difference. This sector does make a difference, and I think that that's a very key thing to remember. So anyway, that's the final word from me. If we could thank the panel in the usual way. Thank you very much. And